We have the pleasure now to host at the IPS conference General retired Joseph Votel, who is the former commander of the United States Central Command, known as CENTCOM. And General Votel, it's a real pleasure and an honor to have you with us today in the conference in Israel.
Thanks. It's wonderful to be with you.
And since we are short of time and we have many subjects that we would like to cover, let me dive in directly to the first, I would say, introductory question, if I may say so. As the former commander of CENTCOM, I'm not so sure that all the Israeli viewers and participants are very well familiar with the activities of CENTCOM, and I would like to ask you, can you share with us what is CENTCOM and maybe how does this central command is different than other U.S. commands altogether?
Yeah, thank you very much. United States Central Command, CENTCOM, as we refer to it for kind of a short abbreviation, is one of 11 combatant commands that the United States has that cover our regional responsibilities and cover some of our functional responsibilities within the Department of Defense. Each of them are led by 4-star officers from one of our services, and in that capacity as the commander, we answer directly to the Secretary of Defense and to the President. And we are responsible for the conduct of all military activities, all joint military activities that occur within those areas of responsibility. United States Central Command is what we think of as a regional command, and in that capacity, I had responsibility for all of our military activities in the area known as the Middle East, the area we think of as the Levant, and as the area that we think of as Central and South Asia. So this is about a 20-country area that extends from Egypt to Pakistan and Kazakhstan to Yemen. It was my responsibility to orchestrate our military operations in those areas in accordance with our U.S. national security interests, and of course also working in conjunction with our diplomats.
As you know, General Votel, Israel was observed this year in 2021 to the CENTCOM, and after Israel was for many years under the responsibility of the European Command. What does this mean for Israel and for the region that this change has happened last year?
Well, first off, I think this is an excellent move, and I strongly applaud the decision to move Israel, align Israel under the CENTCOM area of military responsibility, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it was the time to do this. I think what it means is I think it provides the most important opportunity that we have had, the United States has had, to bring the Gulf states into a more coherent approach to security in the region, and particularly security as we think about our challenges with the country of Iran. Normalizing relationships between Israel and countries in the region is a pathway to building on improved security cooperation and presenting a more coherent message and security approach to the region. And I think this is the big opportunity that we that this transition provides us right now.
And that leads me to ask about the American policy. And I would like to play here the devil advocate, if I may say so. You know, we are living, and you know very well, we are living in a rough neighborhood. And in the rough neighborhood, you need to be seen as strong, and you need to have the protection of the big brother, i.e. United States. But many people in Israel and outside Israel would argue that in the recent decade or so, United States deterrence in the region and maybe outside the region have declined. To name a few incidents, one would say that even the war against ISIS that was very successful at the end of the day. ISIS lost his territory in Iraq and in Syria, but many would argue that this is the success of the axis of evil led by Russia and not the success of United States that didn't succeed to achieve this goal. Take, for example, under Trump administration, the clashes with Iran after the decision to step out of the nuclear deal, the attack against Aramco oil facilities that didn't get any American answer, original answer, even shooting down the drone. So many instances and cases like that can be shown. And it seems for some in the region that whoever is betting on the alliance with the United States is betting on the wrong horse. What can you say about that?
Well, I think the United States, it's my view here is that the United States has a lot of interests around the world. And as you've seen in our national defense strategy put together under the Trump administration and really under the leadership of Secretary Mattis, a key focus of our national security is maintaining our competitive edge against countries like China and being able to continue to be the influential driving force in the world. But that doesn't mean that we cannot continue to look after our interests in the Middle East as well. And we have a number of them there, and they have been in place for a long period of time, and they will continue to be interest to us in the future. For example, containing Iran's adventurism in the region and preventing them from obtaining a nuclear weapon is a national security interest for the United States. Continuing to combat terrorism is another one. Making sure that instability in this area doesn't bleed out into other areas affecting our interests or the interests of our allies. Certainly, the security of Israel fits into that very, very prominently, and we have the ability to do all of these things at the same time. Our competitive advantage with China while we continue to protect our interests. But what it requires a very careful review of our posture and strategy in the Middle East to make sure that we have a sustainable presence, that we are using the tools that are available to us, like security assistance, to the very best of our abilities. And we are helping lead the partnerships in the region. And so, I know there are concerns about the United States, but I think we have enduring interests here, and these interests will always come back to roost, and we will have to make sure that we balance them in our overall security approach.
Thank you. You know that we are living now in a very sensitive time, I would say, when as we speak, there are discussions between American representatives and Iranian representatives trying to see if they can reach some kind of a new deal, a new nuclear deal altogether. But as a military commander and as a thinker, do you believe that facing this outstanding Iranian negotiators, and we know the negotiating skills of the Iranians, would there be any merit and any success for such negotiation without putting the military activity, military operation on the table as well?
Well, we'll have to see how that plays out here in terms of how the negotiations go and we move forward in this particular area. I think being able to demonstrate and exercise military capability and our ability to return forces into the region, strategic forces that can help us accomplish missions, I think is an important tool of leverage for our diplomats and for our civilian leadership as we move forward. And it's very, very vital that we continue to do that. And I think we've seen some examples of doing that. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to have hundreds of thousands of troops, but we do have to routinely demonstrate our ability to bring people and forces into the region and maintain bases and access, overflight, and relationships in the region that demonstrate that we can protect our interests as we move forward. I would just say this as a military officer. I do think it's important that we have a way to have dialogue with our adversaries, and our competitors. I found this to be very important in Syria when we were conducting the campaign against ISIS there. Our ability to communicate to the Russian Federation was very important in one, keeping us safe and them safe, and preventing the focus on ISIS from being diverted to something else. So I do think it's important to make sure we have channels for dialogue, and to prevent miscalculation and miscommunication as we work through very tense security issues.
And as a follow-up question, although I believe that the interests of United States and Israel are quite close as long-standing allies, but naturally Israel has more concerns from the possibility of Iranian getting a nuclear military capability that will pose an existential threat to Israel. Now, as if it's not complicated enough to be an American leading figure like you are, I would like to get your recommendation to the Israeli government. I mean, not asking you, do you think that Israel should attack or not the Iranian facilities, as many people in Israel believe that it's about time to do so, but what should be the considerations of Israel while considering this option?
Well, I think certainly this is the the decision of the Israeli government in terms of how they posture for this. But I do think the continued alertness, the continued capabilities that Israel continues to provide in the region they should continue to maintain that. The Israeli forces, I think, have done well at addressing threats that have come close to their border and have threatened their security, and I believe they have a right to do that, particularly after some of what we've heard from adversaries in the regions talking about. I also think it's important, and I think one of the really great opportunities I'm very, very excited about is the opportunity that is being afforded by the Abraham Accords. This normalization of relationships is providing a pathway for greater security cooperation in the region. You may be aware, our listeners may be aware that we've recently completed a maritime operation that involved U.S., Israeli, and other regional Gulf partners in that. And there's now discussion and planning underway for a similar air operation. I think this, building on the back of the Abraham Accords and this normalization of relationships that is taking place between Israel and nations in the region, with the strong support and leadership of the United States, is a certain way to address better maritime security, is a better way to address counterterrorism, it's a better way to present a more coherent deterrent posture against Iran. And it's a better way to address things like integrated air and missile defense, which fits into that previous item I mentioned here. So I think continuing to move in these areas will be very, very important for the Israeli government and for their forces.
Thank you very much. There are so many other questions I want to ask you, but I would leave you with this important statement that some people refers to that as the need to create a second regional NATO to stand against the growing threat of Iranian hegemony, greater hegemony in the region. But I fully agree with you that the Abraham Accords pose a great opportunity for all the allies, all the, I would say, moderate Arab countries in Israel that are playing an important role as American allies in the region. Again, I would like to thank you so much, actually for so many things. First of all, for being the former commander of CENTCOM and contributing a lot to the American safety and the international stability and safety altogether, and together with the whole world to the safety of Israel. So thank you for being there. I wish you a lot of luck in your important job in bands, which we are quite familiar with. Your predecessor, the late General Monty Meigs, was also a friend of ours, and I know how important that job is. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you.